right in front of McLaren legend Genevieve DuPont. CEO Tiffany Sinclair made the biggest mistake of her life by insulting Gavin Carter. At 10:28 p.m., the launch party for the $2.5 million Vortex Nebula 9 supercar on the Santa Monica Cliffs froze as the power died. When Gavin, a black single dad in maintenance, warned of a valve explosion, Tiffany live-streamed herself mocking him to amuse her online viewers. Gavin only wanted to keep his cleaning job to buy asthma medicine for his little daughter, Chloe. The super-rich were too arrogant to see the genius mind of this former U.S. military jet mechanic. This was the start of an amazing comeback by a man they treated like garbage. Now, facing angry guards, a lying chief engineer, and a ticking 20-minute clock, how will Gavin save this million-dollar supercar? 3 hours earlier, Gavin had pushed his cleaning cart through the empty glass hall on the Santa Monica Cliffs. The building smelled of fresh paint and cold ocean air drifting through open panels. He checked his phone twice, worried about Chloe's cough that morning. He had kissed her forehead before leaving for his shift. Her small chest rattled, with every breath, a sound he knew too well. Mrs. Gable promised to watch her closely and call if anything got worse. Gavin folded himself into his old work van at 6 that evening, gripping the wheel with tired hands. He drove along the coast highway, past mansions worth more than he would earn in 10 lifetimes. He told himself this job was steady, and steady was enough. By 9, he was mopping near the stage, while engineers rushed around the Nebula 9, checking wires and screens. Nobody looked at him twice. That was fine by Gavin. He preferred the quiet corners of any room. Then, at exactly 10:28 p.m., every light in the building flickered and died. The supercar's dashboard went black. Engineers began shouting, and Gavin, still holding his mop, walked closer without thinking twice. He noticed a hissing sound near the rear wheel well, faint but familiar. He mentioned it quietly to a nearby technician, warning that the pressure valve might be close to failing. Tiffany Sinclair overheard him from across the room, already reaching for her phone to start a fresh live stream. She saw an opportunity, not a warning. She saw a chance to entertain her audience at someone else's expense. She strode over, phone raised high, and looked Gavin up and down with open contempt. "A dirty janitor thinks he can teach my PhDs how to build electric cars," she said, loud enough for her camera to catch every word. "Go mop up the vomit in the lobby before I fire you, and let your daughter starve," she added, her smile sharp and cruel. The room erupted in a scattered laughter, cameras swinging toward Gavin's face. Right after those cruel words left Tiffany Sinclair's mouth, the whole glass room went dead quiet. Gavin Carter stood under the blue neon lights, one phone camera pushed close to his face. The livestream counter jumped past 180,000 viewers in seconds. Soft laughter rolled through the crowd of 350 tech billionaires. Somewhere behind him, a woman in a sequined dress covered her mouth and giggled. Tiffany's own laugh was sharp like glass tapping glass. Gavin did not flinch. His heart beat slow and steady, the way his father taught him years ago on cold garage mornings. Around him, the smell of expensive perfume mixed with the sharp tang of hot electronics. Then his ears caught something small under the noise of the party. A thin whine, barely there, came from underneath the Nebula 9. It sat at a strange, high pitch, close to 450 hertz. Gavin knew that sound from 1,000 nights spent under military jets. It meant the hybrid battery pack was leaking pressure, and leaking pressure meant real danger for everyone in this glass room. He looked down at his own hands, cracked and rough, from years of scrubbing floors and fixing whatever broke. Then he thought of his daughter Chloe and the inhaler sitting almost empty on their kitchen counter. He could not afford to lose this $45.50 an hour job tonight, not with rent due, and not with Chloe's breathing getting worse every single week. Across the glass hall, Chief Engineer Lawrence Croft wiped sweat from his forehead with a shaking hand. He told Tiffany the main computer had locked up completely, refusing every command he typed. The live broadcast was set to start in 25 minutes, and the car would not turn on. Reporters were already lined up outside, cameras ready, waiting for the big reveal. Panic flickered behind Tiffany's eyes for half a second, but her face stayed smooth and confident. She needed a story for her cameras, and she needed one fast. Her heels clicked hard against the polished glass floor as she walked toward Gavin, each step deliberate, each step designed to be seen. She stopped a few feet away and raised her chin high. Her voice, sweet and cold at the same time, carried across the whole party without a microphone. "I'll give you exactly 20 minutes, she said, loud enough for every phone to catch it clearly. "If a filthy janitor like you can fix what my PhDs cannot, I will hand you a check for $100,000 right here, right now." She smiled wider, tilting her head like she already knew the answer. "But if you fail, or you damage one more bolt on my car, I will have you arrested for destroying private property and bad-mouthing my brand." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A dozen more phones rose into the air, all pointed straight at Gavin, waiting to catch his humiliation for the world to see. His jaw tightened. The muscles along his neck pulled tight, like rope under strain. He said nothing yet, doing the math in his head, weighing his daughter's medicine against a jail cell and a criminal record. His phone buzzed once in his pocket, then buzzed again. It was a message from Mrs. Gable, his elderly neighbor watching Chloe, that night while he worked his second shift. "Chloe is wheezing bad," the message read. "Her inhaler is empty. I need $320 for a new one tonight. Gavin, please hurry." Gavin's fist closed slowly around the phone, until his knuckles turned pale. Behind him, on the main stage, a massive digital clock began its countdown. 20 minutes. 1959. 1958. He thought of his father, Silas Carter, a legendary mechanic, who had passed away 2 years earlier from a tired heart. Silas used to say, "Metal never lies, son. Respect it, and it will always save you." Gavin lifted his eyes and looked straight into Tiffany's. His voice came out low, even and completely without fear. "I accept," he said simply, "but I need full access to that engine bay. No interference. No one touching it but me." 2 security guards stepped forward instantly and shoved him back hard from the velvet rope. Gavin stumbled but caught his footing fast, his worn boots gripping the slick polished floor beneath him. "Get your hands off him. Right now." The voice cut through the noisy room like a blade through silk. Every single head turned at once. Genevieve DuPont, 68 years old and a living legend in racing engineering, was walking down from the VIP platform. The crowd parted for her, without a single word, the way water parts around stone. She studied Gavin closely, noting how straight he stood, almost military in posture. Then she saw the thick calluses stretched across his palms, the unmistakable mark of a real, working mechanic. Her sharp eyes softened just slightly. She turned to Tiffany, her tone suddenly sharp, as tempered steel. "If Vortex won't give its own mechanic proper tools, then DuPont Racing will provide them instead." She reached into her tailored jacket and pulled out a titanium torque wrench, a rare limited edition piece worth more than most cars. She placed it firmly into Gavin's open hand. Their eyes met for a long moment, and something quiet passed between them, the silent respect shared between 2 people who truly understood machines. "I heard the whine in your voice when you first spoke about that pressure valve," Genevieve said softly, just loud enough for him to hear. "That is not a guess. That is instinct built over years." Gavin nodded once, gripping the cool titanium tightly. "My father used to say a good ear finds problems faster than any computer screen ever could," he answered quietly. Genevieve smiled for the first time, that night, small and genuine. "Your father sounds like he was a wise man," she said. "Now go prove him right, Mr. Carter. The clock is not waiting for either of us." She stepped back toward the crowd, arms crossed, watching closely. For the first time since the countdown began, Gavin felt something steady settle inside his chest, something close to hope. The digital clock now read 14 minutes and 32 seconds. Gavin dropped flat onto his back and slid under the belly of the nebula. 9 without hesitation. Dust and carbon fiber grit rained down onto his face immediately. Heat poured off the massive lithium battery pack just above him, climbing close to 65 degrees Celsius. It burned against his cheeks like standing to near an open stove. He kept his breathing steady and slow, ignoring the sting, focusing only on the sound waiting beneath the surface. He called out loudly for the diagnostic tablet, the one linked directly to the car's safety systems. Lawrence Croft crouched near the front wheel well and flatly refused him. "That's classified security data," Lawrence snapped, his voice cracking. "You don't get to see that. Not you." Gavin didn't argue. He didn't need a screen anyway. He pressed his ear firmly against the cold carbon underbody panel and listened with his whole body, the way his father taught him. A faint clicking sound came from a high-voltage relay buried somewhere deeper inside the frame. Tick, 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 steady as a heartbeat, but wrong, all wrong. Years earlier, Gavin got stuck in a violent sandstorm on an Air Force base overseas. That night, he learned to bypass broken digital systems on F-16 fighter jets, using nothing but instinct and steel. He used that exact same trick now. His hands moved with quick, sure confidence, working the borrowed wrench along a stubborn bolt. The panel finally dropped free into his waiting palm with a soft metallic clunk. Underneath, something caught his eye immediately, something that should never have been sitting inside a brand-new electric supercar fresh off the factory line. His fingers traced along the metal casing, feeling for anything out of place. The surface felt cool near the frame, but strangely warm just a few inches over, like a fever hiding under smooth steel. A faint smell drifted up, sharp and chemical, nothing like the clean grease scent of a properly built engine. Gavin's chest tightened. Something here had been touched by careless, hurried hands. What could a former jet mechanic possibly find hiding under a $1 million car built just weeks ago? The clock ticked down to 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Without warning, the giant LED screen above the stage flashed bright, blinding red. Bold white letters spelled out a warning that stole the air from the entire room. Battery overheat critical. Fire risk in 5 minutes. Screams broke out across the party instantly. Champagne glasses shattered against the floor as guests stumbled backward. Tiffany shrieked at the guards to drag Gavin out, desperate to protect her precious machine from an explosion on live television. Gavin stayed perfectly calm under the car, his eyes narrowing at something new pressed against the frame. A copper pressure release pipe had been bent and twisted on purpose deliberately by human hands. Thick heat-resistant epoxy sealed the whole pipe completely shut. The weld marks looked fresh and sloppy, clearly rushed, clearly hidden from anyone who might come looking. Someone had jammed this system on purpose, maybe to fake an error and stall tonight's launch, or maybe to hide a much older, much deadlier problem from the world. Gavin slid his gaze sideways through the gap in the panel. He found Lawrence Croft's face just a few feet away, pale as chalk, sweat dripping steadily down his collar. Why would a company's own chief engineer sabotage the very car he had spent years building with his own hands? Gavin reached toward the hardened epoxy, ready to break it free and release the trapped pressure building inside. Lawrence suddenly dropped to his knees beside him, pretending to inspect a loose bolt for the cameras. He leaned in close and whispered fast, his breath shaky and sour with fear. "Listen, man, I'll wire you 50 grand tonight. Just crawl out and say this car can't be fixed." His voice cracked further as he kept talking, words tumbling out in a rushed, desperate whisper. He admitted the battery had a hydrogen leak straight from the factory floor, a defect he had buried months ago to protect his $1 million bonus. "Nobody has to know," Lawrence pleaded quietly. "Just walk away, please." Gavin studied the man's shaking hands, noticing the fresh tremor in every finger. Lawrence had clearly not slept in days, maybe weeks, carrying this secret alone under the weight of his own greed. You knew this could kill people, Gavin said quietly, not as a question, but as a fact. Lawrence flinched like he had been slapped across the face. I was going to fix it, Lawrence stammered, his voice barely a whisper now. After the launch, I swear I was going to fix it quietly, before anyone got hurt. Gavin shook his head slowly, disgust settling deep in his chest like a stone. There is no quiet fix for a lie this big, he said. Not one that keeps 300 people safe tonight. Gavin's stomach turned cold, with disgust at the man beside him. If that pressure wasn't released right now, the whole hybrid system could ignite without warning. It would tear through this glass building on the cliff and kill everyone standing inside. He shoved Lawrence's trembling hand away, without a second of hesitation. I won't trade people's lives for your bonus, he said quietly but firmly. And I won't sell out my father's name for your money. Only 4 minutes remained on the blinking countdown clock. The epoxy sat hardened like stone against his fingertips, and Gavin had no proper tools built for a job like this one. How could one man possibly crack open-sealed industrial glue using nothing but bare hands and borrowed scraps? The countdown blinked past the 3-minute mark, each second feeling heavier than the last. Gavin needed a small jolt of power to trigger the frozen release valves coiled deep inside the housing. He turned his head toward a woman standing nearby, close to the barrier rope. He borrowed the small metal paperclip pinned to her name badge, whispering a quick, grateful thank you. Then he pulled an old phone charging cable from his own back pocket. It was the same cable he used every night to charge his cracked phone by Chloe's bed. Using his teeth, he stripped back the plastic coating carefully, until 2 thin copper wires appeared, each one thin as a strand of hair. His hands did not shake, though sweat rolled steadily down his temple and stung his eyes. He touched the bare copper wires gently against the car's small backup battery terminal. The paperclip became a tiny bridge, sending a weak current straight into the frozen relay controlling the release valve. He held his breath, completely still. Around him, 350 guests stood frozen in place, phones raised high, not one person daring to make a sound. Even the air conditioning seemed to hush itself for this moment. He pressed the 2 wires together firmly. A sharp, clean snap echoed loudly from beneath the silent, waiting car. Would such a small, homemade spark really be enough to break open a valve locked shut by massive pressure? A long, hissing rush of air tore through the silence, lasting a full 5 seconds. Built-up gas rushed violently out through the safety vent below the car's frame. The overheating system cleared almost instantly, cooling within seconds. The blazing red warning screen shut off completely. A calm green message replaced it on the giant display. Safety system, 100% ready. Gavin slid out slowly from under the car, blinking against the bright lights above him. Grease and sweat covered his entire body, streaked heavily across his sharp, tired jawline. He reached through the open driver's window with a steady hand and pressed the glowing red ignition button. The Vortex Nebula 9's hybrid engine roared to life instantly, shaking the very ground beneath everyone's feet. The sound rolled through the glass panels of the cliffside building like distant thunder, deep, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Several guests actually stepped backward from the force of it. The countdown clock froze at exactly 42 seconds remaining. For 2 full seconds, nobody in the room moved at all. Then the entire crowd exploded into thunderous, disbelieving applause. But would Tiffany Sinclair actually honor her $100,000 promise now? Or would she try to twist her way out of it? Tiffany quickly straightened her posture, forcing her practiced smile back into perfect place. She climbed onto the small stage, camera lights catching every careful angle of her face. 500,000 people were now watching live around the world. As you can see, she said smoothly, her voice steady despite the chaos. Vortex technology is so advanced, even a maintenance worker can operate it safely. Her tone dripped with false, practiced sweetness. That's enough, Tiffany. Genevieve DuPont stepped forward calmly, holding a small handheld data scanner in one steady hand. She walked past Tiffany without asking permission and plugged it directly into the car's diagnostic port beneath the steering column. She hit a single glowing button, and the car's full internal history appeared instantly on the giant screen above the stage. It streamed live, unedited, to the entire watching world. The data was crystal clear for everyone to read. A pressure warning had triggered exactly 14 days earlier. Someone had manually deleted every single safety alert file at precisely 4:12 in the afternoon, just one day before tonight's launch. The deletion required a high-level executive password to complete. That password belonged to Lawrence Croft alone, and final approval had come through a digital signature carrying Tiffany Sinclair's own name. Gasps rolled through the crowd like a sudden wave crashing on the shore. Cameras zoomed in tight on Tiffany's face, now drained completely of color, pale as fresh printer paper. A reporter near the front shouted a question, her voice cutting through the noise. "Ms. Sinclair, did you know about this leak before tonight's launch event?" Tiffany's lips parted, but nothing came out. Another reporter pushed forward, phone raised high above the crowd. "Is it true you fired workers last year for raising safety concerns, just like this one?" Murmurs spread fast through the stunned guests. Somewhere near the back, an older investor lowered his glass and turned to his wife. "I sold half my shares an hour ago," he muttered. "Guess I should have sold the rest too." Security guards, the same ones who had shoved Gavin earlier, now stood awkwardly near the stage. Nobody gave them orders anymore. Nobody seemed to remember they existed at all. How could Tiffany and Lawrence possibly explain themselves now, with the entire world watching every single second unfold? Tiffany stood frozen in place, her mouth slightly open, no words managing to escape. Her assistant's phone buzzed nonstop beside her, with panicked, urgent calls from the company's biggest shareholders. Within 3 minutes, Vortex Automotive's stock price on after hours trading dropped by 32%. Nearly $400 million in company value simply vanished into thin air. Two Santa Monica police officers, already stationed just outside for traffic control, walked calmly into the glass hall together. Genevieve directed them straight toward Lawrence Croft with one steady hand. They cuffed his trembling wrists behind his back, charging him with willful sabotage of a high-pressure safety device. It was a crime that had endangered every single guest standing inside this room tonight. Tiffany's knees buckled beneath her, and she sank slowly down onto the cold glass floor. Her white silk dress dragged through a smear of dark engine grease left behind. Her own bodyguards looked away, refusing to meet her eyes. Justice had finally found the people who hurt Gavin. But what would happen now to a tired single father and his sick little girl waiting at home? Genevieve DuPont walked straight toward Gavin, her expression soft, with genuine, quiet respect. She bowed her head slightly, the way one true craftsman honors another. Cameras from every major news outlet leaned in close to catch every word. "Gavin Carter," she announced, loud and clear for the entire livestream audience. "DuPont Racing is offering you the position of Chief Safety Engineer, effective immediately. Your starting salary will be $450,000 a year," she continued, her voice steady and warm. The crowd murmured in shock at the number. She pulled a checkbook from her jacket pocket and signed it firmly on the spot, right there in front of everyone watching. "This isn't Tiffany's money," she said. "This is mine for your integrity tonight." She promised Chloe would be seen the very next morning by the finest children's specialists in all of California. Every medical bill would be fully covered starting that day. Gavin's throat tightened, but no tears fell. He simply nodded once, gripping the titanium wrench a little tighter in his tired hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice rough with exhaustion. "But I need you to know something. I didn't do this for money or for a job offer." Genevieve tilted her head, listening carefully the way she listened to every good engineer she had ever respected. "I know that," she said. "That is exactly why I am offering it." A young reporter pushed forward, holding out a microphone with a shaking hand. "Mr. Carter, what would you say to Tiffany Sinclair right now, if you could say anything at all?" Gavin thought for a moment, looking down at the grease still staining his knuckles. "I would tell her that respect costs nothing," he said, "and that pride is the most expensive thing a person can lose." The crowd fell silent again, this time not from shock, but from something closer to shame. Several guests looked away from the stage, unable to meet Gavin's steady gaze. 6 months later, in a quiet corner of South Central Los Angeles, Gavin stood outside a small mechanic shop bathed in warm morning light. It had once belonged to his father, Silas Carter, and Gavin had bought it back with his very own earnings. A shining brass sign now hung proudly above the door. It read Carter and Son, Aviation and Auto. The morning sun caught the letters and made them glow like gold. Gavin lifted Chloe up into his arms, laughing softly at her giggling face. Her cheeks were full and pink now, her breathing calm and easy for the first time in years. She pointed excitedly at a bird landing on the old shop sign, tugging at her father's collar. Gavin smiled, the kind of smile that reaches all the way to tired eyes. He held Genevieve's titanium wrenched tightly in his other hand, the very same one that had helped save his life that unforgettable night. He looked up at the clear California sky, feeling steady and proud. Inside the shop, a young apprentice swept the floor, learning the same trade Silas once taught his own son. The smell of fresh oil and clean metal filled the small, honest space, just as it had when Gavin was a boy. Mrs. Gable stopped by most mornings now, bringing coffee and sitting on an old stool near the door. She liked to watch Chloe chase the shop cat between stacked tires, laughing until she ran out of breath. Word of the launch party had spread fast across the country. News trucks camped outside the shop for nearly a week after the story broke wide open online. Gavin answered a few questions, always calm, always brief. He never once bragged about the 20 minutes under that car. Reporters asked how he stayed, so steady with a jail cell threatened over his head. He simply shrugged. Then he mentioned his father's old lessons about respecting metal. Vortex Automotive never recovered its reputation. The board removed Tiffany Sinclair within a week, stripping her of every title and most of her stock. Lawrence Croft pleaded guilty and lost his engineering license for good. Genevieve DuPont checked in on Gavin every few weeks, sometimes bringing spare parts, sometimes just bringing lunch. She told reporters once that meeting Gavin reminded her why she fell in love with machines as a young girl. Chloe's cough disappeared completely by winter. Her doctors called her recovery remarkable, crediting steady treatment and a stable home. She started kindergarten that fall, proud of her new backpack covered in stars. Gavin thought back sometimes to that terrifying 20-minute clock and the cruel words that started it all. None of it stung anymore, not really, not standing here today, with his daughter laughing beside him. Some evenings, after closing the shop, Gavin sat on the front step with Chloe and watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. She would ask him to tell the story of the loud car again, and he always did, softer each time. He never made himself the hero of it. In his version, the hero was always his father, and the wrench and the quiet courage to simply tell the truth when it mattered most. He had protected his daughter with everything he had. He had honored his father's name completely, and he had proven, once and for all, that quiet strength always outlasts loud arrogance. The world had finally seen the man he always was.